guys can sit back down. I'm going to share something. All right. Today I want to talk about consecration. Like, what does it look like to live a consecrated life? Like, how does it apply to our lives? Which is convenient because if you didn't already know, it is one of our pillars, and we do walk by it every day. So there's that. But first, hold up, sorry. Let me set up. First, I want to start with talking a little bit about my story. Not really like how I was raised, but my walk with God, kind of. So you guys all know my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Lee. I was born into a Christian family. I've been Christian my whole life. They were pastors in college, and then they raised me to love Jesus well. But not just that, my grandparents are all Christians. Two of them, or I guess a pair of them, they travel all around the world, right? Their ministry is huge. They've loved Jesus for their whole lives, as of that's what I know. All my aunts and uncles, they're all Christians. They're all in somewhat part of the church, I guess, whether it's youth pastoring or actually running a church. So my whole life, I did grow up in the church too. I love God. I read my Bible all the time. I prayed. I memorized the scripture. But some people say like there's that moment where your faith becomes your own and not your parents. Right? I walked through that season of life. It was my 8th grade year. At the end, there was 8th grade year into the summer. There was 3 major events that happened in my life that kind of shaped who I am, kind of shaped the way I see God. The first one was I got baptized. It was here at TDA, the first TDA baptism. I got baptized with some of my best friends, Jesse, Kai, Amira, Joanna, and then a different Landon, a different Emma. Sorry if I didn't say your name. But we got baptized. That was super cool. And then the Send KC happened. I don't know if you guys, a lot of you guys were there, but it was super powerful, super cool. And then the Bold Conference. I went to a Christian conference that kind of shaped the way I view God. And so those 3 things, right? My baptism, the Send, and Bold Conference all kind of changed who I am, right? And that summer, I read my Bible like all the time. I prayed with Jesus, and my fire for God was lit for, I would say, for the first time, right? And that summer, I was riding on like, I guess, a spiritual high. And then came freshman year, and slowly my life started getting busy. And I didn't not love Jesus anymore, right? I still loved him, but I stopped spending as much time with him, right? I didn't make space in my life to spend time with him. So slowly, my fire started to dim, right, and get smaller. And then we had a retreat, right? It was super powerful, and right, and then I would fall back in love with God for a few more days or a few weeks, right? And then slowly, it would go back down, right? And then, we'd have a good long assembly, like extended assembly or a good quarterly prayer event, right? And I was just on this roller coaster with Jesus, but we can't live our lives from conference to conference. We can't live our lives going from these retreats. They will not sustain us. These retreats, our long assemblies, they're beautiful moments. Like today, this winter retreat is a beautiful moment, but they can't sustain us. They can start a fire in us, right? These retreats are known to start fires in our students. They can start fires, they can reignite fires that maybe you've lost, right? But they can't keep us going. It's the decision that we make every day that keeps our fire burning. It's our decision to run after God and to chase after him even when we don't want to. That's what will keep our fire burning, right? This is consecration. Consecration is choosing to live our lives set apart and holy for God even when it's not convenient for us, right? It's choosing to live set apart for God even when we don't feel like it. So a lot of people look at consecrated lives, right? They look at what it looks like to be consecrated, and they actually don't choose it because maybe it looks too hard, or maybe there's too many rules to follow or too many things to do. But the point of consecration isn't to live a perfect life, right? If our goal was to live religiously perfect lives, then why aren't we modeling our lives after the Pharisees, right? Because they had it all together. They read their Bibles. They gave to the poor, right? They prayed to Jesus. So why wouldn't we reflect them? Why wouldn't we copy our lives after them? Right? And most of us know why, right? We grew up all in the church knowing that the Pharisees were bad. We grew up knowing that it's more than just the actions that we do, but it's the heart behind what we do. But we live exactly like them, right? We see that person over there who's reading their Bible all the time, and we're automatically like, oh, they must be doing really well with Jesus, right? Or we see that person in the front worshiping freely, and we're like, oh, they must be in love with Jesus, right? Or maybe it's about ourselves and how we act. Maybe it's like, at the end of the day, you're like, I didn't spend any time with Jesus, right? I'm such a failure. Or maybe it's, I haven't read my Bible in weeks, or I haven't journaled to Jesus in months, right? I can't be as holy as that person, right? God can't meet me the same way he does that person because I don't spend the same amount of time with him. And it blows my mind because it's the exact mindset that the Pharisees have. And it's crazy because in our heads, we know that the Pharisees were wrong. And in our heads, we know what the right thing to say is, right? It's not just our actions, right? But we have the exact same mindset with them, right? It's the mindset that our actions determine our walk with God, right? It's the mindset that our performance, what we can do, affects the extent into what God can encounter us in, right? But when did we make praying to Jesus anything more than just talking with our Father, right? When did we make worship anything more than just praising our King? When did we make reading our Bible anything more than spending time with someone we love, right? When did we make Christianity about us? When did we make it about what we can do, what we can accomplish, right? The lifestyle we live. When did we make it about us? Because it's never been about us. It's never been about anything that we did, right? It was nothing that we did that won our love from God. It's nothing that we did that won our acceptance. So why do we keep making it about us? Right? We're called to something so much higher than this. We're called to so much more than to just hit the quota, right? We're called to so much more than to live up to these religious standards. We're called to intimacy with our Creator, right? We're called to love and to be loved by the person who made us, and that's crazy, right? We're called to live this consecrated life, right? But what does that look like? What does it look like to live a life of consecration? In the Old Testament, the ones who chose to live their life consecrated to Jesus, they were called the Nazarites. I don't know if you've heard of them, but that's what they were called. The Nazarites, they had a commitment to God, right? During their period of commitment, they had a vow. It was called the Nazarite vow. There's this book. It's called The Nazarite Vow. It's by Lou Engle, and it kind of just breaks down what the vow is, and it relates it to us as modern Christians. So I'm kind of just going to do that. I'm going to break down what the vow is. And a lot of what I'm sharing today is actually coming straight from this book, so if you ever read it, you'll probably hear a lot of the things I say. But the vow comes from Numbers 6, 2-8. I'm going to read these 6 verses. If a man or woman wants to make a special vow, a vow of dedication to the Lord as a Nazarite, they must abstain from wine and other fermented drinks, and must not drink vinegar made from wine or other fermented drinks. They must not drink grape juice or eat grapes or raisins. As long as they remain under the Nazarite vow, they must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, not even the seeds or skins. During the entire period of the Nazarite vow, no razor may be used on their head. They must be holy until the period of their dedication to the Lord is over. They must let their hair grow long. Throughout the period of their dedication to the Lord, the Nazarite must not go near a dead body. Even if their father or mother or brother or sister dies, they must not make themselves ceremonially unclean on account of them, because the symbol of their dedication to God is on their head. Throughout the period of dedication, they are consecrated to the Lord. All right, so that's a lot. But he broke it down into three main topics, I guess. The first one is they shall not drink any wine or eat anything from the vine. Right? That was the first part of the vow. No wine, and they can't drink from the vine. Right? And back then, for the Israelites, that was kind of like their pleasures, right? Or their sweets or their desserts, right? So why would God ask them to give it up? Right? Why would God ask them to give wine and grapes up? Right? It had nothing to do with what they were giving up. Right? The grapes didn't make someone holy or not holy. Right? The wine didn't make someone more consecrated or less consecrated than the other person. It had nothing to do with what they were giving up. Right? It was the heart behind the action, that they were willing to sacrifice things to grow closer to God. Right? The Nazarites understood that heavenly treasures are far greater than anything on this earth. Right? They were willing to deny and give up the pleasures of this world to receive heavenly pleasures. The question is, what are we willing to give up? Are we willing to give up to see more of God? Are we willing to sacrifice a little bit more to see God a little bit better? Are we willing to lay down a little bit more to know God a little bit better? Right? Or the question is maybe, what are we not willing to give up? Right? What in our lives is so important that we can't give it up to know God a little bit more? There's this person taking offering at Gen Z for Jesus, he said something that I thought was really cool, and it kind of applies to a lot of different things in life. He said, if you're holding on to something that you can't give up, then you're not holding it, it's holding you. Right? In my life, if I'm holding on to something, right, whether it's my pride or my self-image or my anxiety, or maybe it's something good like a game or a sport or my phone or social media, right? If I can't give it up, if I can't lay it at the feet of Jesus, then I don't have a hold of it. It has a grip over me. Right? And are you willing to lay these things at the feet of Jesus? Because we're supposed to love Jesus with everything that we have. Right? The Bible makes it so clear. It says, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, and all of your strength. That doesn't leave much room for anything else. Right? We're called to live our lives for Jesus. And it's a percent game, right? How can we live wholehearted for God when we're still giving our hearts and souls to these other things? Right? So many of us want to be more passionate for God, right? We want to love God more, but we're still holding on to these other things that we can't give up, and it doesn't add up. Right? How can we be all in if we're consumed by the fear of man? Right? Or consumed with this game, or consumed with that website, or consumed even with ourselves? Right? How can we be all in? How can we love God with everything that we have if we're obsessed with what that girl thinks of me, or obsessed with what that guy thinks of me? Right? If we can learn to lay these things at the feet of Jesus as junior high and high school students, it will change the trajectory of our lives. Right? If we can learn to give these things at the feet of Jesus to know God a little bit better, it will change us forever. And the thing is, the world will not understand some of the things that you give up. Right? They're not going to understand some of the things you sacrifice. They might even make fun of you. Right? But don't let that stop you from pouring your oil at Jesus' feet. Don't let that stop you from giving him your all. Because I promise you, there is nothing on this earth you can give him that he is not worthy of. I promise you, there is nothing that you can sacrifice to Jesus that he is not already worthy of. Right? So that's the first point. They shall not drink any wine or eat anything from the vine. The second one is they shall not cut their hair. The long hair was a public declaration of their consecration and abandonment for Jesus. The hair was a physical, visual difference on the Nazarites, even from other Christians. Right? They were publicly set apart. And the important thing is, even from other Christians. When you choose to live a life consecrated to Jesus, you will stand out even among other followers of God. People will easily be able to tell the difference between you and to someone that just knows about God. Right? Like Alpha said, there's a difference between knowing about God and actually knowing him and living out what you say. Right? As nowadays, I mean, maybe he's calling you to this, but I don't think the message is to grow out our hair to symbolize our commitment. Right? The idea behind the long hair was, how far are you willing to go for Jesus? Right? How abandoned are you willing to be for Jesus? Are you willing to stand out among others? We're called to be a light as Nazarites. In Matthew 5, it says, neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Right, we have Jesus, the all-consuming fire inside of us, so why would we keep it hidden? Why are we as Christians trying to blend in with the rest of society? Why are we trying to fit in with the culture of this world and what they say is right and what they say is wrong? Right? No. Us as Nazarites, we're supposed to be countercultural. Right? We live as Nazarites for something greater than ourselves. Right? They're not in it for themselves. It doesn't matter what the Nazarites looked like. Right? It doesn't matter what people thought of them. They were only living their lives for Jesus. They lived to glorify God in all that they did. They were empty vessels for Jesus to move and work through, and the hair was just a symbol. With all of that, publicly living your lives consecrated, it means nothing if your heart's not in the right place. Right? The book says the hair was an outward sign of an inward abandonment. Right? It starts in here. It starts from a decision we make in here to follow God, and then you can live your life publicly for him. Right, so that's the second point. The third point, and the last part of the vow, was that they're not allowed to go near a dead body. When the Nazarites chose this lifestyle of consecration, they walked away from a lot of things. Part of being a Nazarite means dying to yourself. Right? It means dying to your own agenda and to be born again in Christ. That's what being a Nazarite means. We have to walk away from the life we used to live. We have to leave behind the things that maybe we used to do and you used to say. Whether that's leaving some friends that have a bad influence on you, right, or not watching the same things that you used to watch, or not listening to the same music you used to watch, right? We need to walk away from those things. Right? It's kind of like baptism. We die to ourselves, and then we're born again in Christ, and we have to live differently than before. Right? Matthew 5:8 says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Right? We're called to live a life of purity for him. We will see more of him if we choose to live holy and set apart. Right? We will be tempted, though. We'll be tempted to fall back and go back to the lifestyle that we used to live. Right? Maybe it'll look easier. Maybe it looks like more fun or whatever. But we will absolutely be tempted. But as Nazarites, there is a clear line. Even when it's hard, you have to make your decision. You have to be a Nazarite. Others may, but you may not. Right? So why am I telling you all this? Right? Why am I throwing all these points at you? Right? The point of me reading you the vow and breaking it down isn't just to throw a bunch of information at you. Right? My point is not to condemn you guys and to make you feel like you need to be a Nazarite. No, this message, I want you to have a new desire to chase after God with everything that you have. Right? I want you to long for God more than you long for anything of this world, because you can't serve both God and this world. Right? It doesn't work. My hope is that each of us will choose to live out this Nazarite-like consecration. My hope is that we break off any religious change that we're in and that we run after God with this newfound freedom. God will bless and reward those who diligently seek him. He will not stop until he finds his Nazarites. Right? He will not stop until he finds those who are wholeheartedly committed to him. So when he looks, let that be us. Let that be me. Let that be you. Let us be the people that he finds that will live for him. We're going to do 2 different responses right now. The first one is very personal. You guys can stay seated wherever you are. We're going to sing this song. It's just between you and God. We're going to sing the song about surrendering our lives to Jesus, right, and making room, right, giving him room in our lives for him to work. So that's the first thing we're going to do. So just sit and really just talk with God, right? Ask him what in your life right now is prioritized over knowing him. What in your life right now is more important than spending time with him, right? And I promise you, he's going to show you, right? He's not just going to leave you to figure this out by yourself. If you ask him, he will show you. If you ask him, right, he will reveal to you the things that you need to lay up. So we're just going to sing this song. Think about the lyrics of the song. Think about what it means, and just, pray to Jesus. And then we're going to do something else after that.